So, I want you to picture a fairly ordinary morning. You wake up, it's a beautiful day. The sunlight is streaming in through the window.
Sounds great so far.
Right. But then you look down, and right there on your favorite rug is this fresh drift of white fur. And it definitely wasn't there when you went to sleep.
Oh, yeah. A classic surprise.
Yeah. And then you hear this stretch and like this distinctive melodic little vocalization. And you greeted by one of the most famously beautiful smiling dogs in the world.
The Samoyed. I mean, it's the ultimate Instagram aesthetic, right? You see those pristine white coats against a snowy backdrop, the trademark Sammy smile, as they call it.
It's everywhere.
It is, and it's incredibly easy to, romanticize the experience of living with one.
Well, welcome to another deep dive. Today, our mission is to basically pierce right through that flawless imagery. We are examining a really highly detailed guide and checklist originally designed for Samoyed owners to look at the practical, everyday reality of sharing your home with what is, fundamentally, a rugged Arctic worker.
Yeah, and by the time we finish this deep dive, you are going to understand the underlying mechanics of this breed. We're going to explore why living with this specific dog requires you to, obsessively check the daily weather forecast before you've even poured your morning coffee.
Which is wild to think about.
Right. And we'll see how their evolutionary history shapes pretty much every single interaction you have with them in a modern home.
Because, a Samoyed is definitely not just a decorative white dog. Okay,
Okay.
let's unpack this. We have to start with the single most defining physical trait that dictates an owner's daily life.
The coat.
Exactly, that massive double coat. Looking through the checklist we have here, it becomes pretty clear that if you bring one of these dogs home, your vacuum cleaner is, well, it's basically a permanent roommate.
Oh, 100%.
Honestly, with the amount of mechanical work that appliance is doing, it should probably be paying a portion of the rent.
Yeah, the vacuum becomes a critical piece of infrastructure, absolutely. The coat is just this imposing physical reality. I mean, it dictates your daily schedule, your furniture choices.
The clothing you can wear.
Yes. And even the type of car interior you maintain. To understand why grooming is such a non-negotiable reality, we have to actually look at the anatomy of that fur.
Right, because it's not just regular dog hair.
No, not at all. They have this dense, woolly undercoat that's designed to trap body heat, and that's overlaid with longer, harsher guard hairs that repel ice and snow.
So it's basically a highly technical weather system.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
So brushing isn't just about keeping them looking pretty. It's a literal mechanical requirement to prevent that undercoat from tangling into mats.
And those mats aren't just cosmetic issues, right?
Yeah.
The sources point out that a daily brushing routine doubles as a crucial skin check.
Yeah, absolutely vital.
Because with all that density, you can't spot a hot spot or a tick or a developing skin infection at a glance. You literally have to feel your way through the coat, like down to the skin level, to know if your dog is actually healthy.
Right. And then you have to factor in the phenomenon known as coat blow.
Oh man, coat blow. Just the name sounds intense.
It is. This isn't your standard everyday shedding. Driven by seasonal temperature and daylight changes, a Samoyed will entirely drop that dense undercoat.
Entirely drop it.
Pretty much. You are dealing with weeks of heavy shedding where you can pull out tufts of wool by the handful. Getting through a coat blow requires intense, sustained grooming cooperation from the dog.
Which means grooming is a behavior you have to actively train. You're conditioning an animal to, tolerate being manipulated with steel combs for hours a week.
Exactly. It's a trained skill.
But wait, I feel like a lot of breeder websites market Samoyeds as hypoallergenic.
If someone has allergies, doesn't that mitigate the sheer volume of fur we're talking about?
No.
No. And also, if the fur management becomes too much of a chore in the summer, I see people just, shaving their fluffy dogs down.
Okay, we need to dismantle both of those ideas right now because they are functionally dangerous misconceptions.
Oh, wow. Okay. First, the term hypoallergenic is basically a marketing myth when it comes to dogs. Human allergies are typically triggered by specific proteins found in canine dander, saliva, and urine.
Not just the hair itself.
Right, not the hair. While the Samoyed coat might distribute those proteins differently than a short-haired breed, allergy reactions vary wildly based on the individual person's immune system and that specific dog's protein output.
So someone with severe allergies would need to spend significant time physically interacting with the breed, like literally breathing the air in a Samoyed household before ever committing.
Unquestionably, you can't just trust a label.
Right.
Now, regarding shaving a double-coated dog for the summer, This fundamentally misunderstands the thermodynamics of their coat. That undercoat acts like a high-end Yeti cooler.
A Yeti cooler.
Yeah. It traps a layer of temperate air against the dog's skin, insulating them from both extreme cold and environmental heat, and then the guard hairs reflect the sun.
So if you shave them, you strip away their natural thermal defense system?
You destroy it. You completely ruin it. Furthermore, the undercoat grows back much faster than the guard hairs.
Oh.
Yeah. If you shave a Samoyed, the woolly undercoat chokes out the new guard hairs, creating this dense, Velcro-like pelt that permanently impairs their ability to regulate temperature and repel moisture.
Wow, so it never really grows back the same.
Rarely.
Mm-hmm.
Shaving is a medical intervention reserved strictly for surgeries or severe neglected matting. It is never a lazy solution for summer heat.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because you cannot just shave off their Arctic insulation, that complex thermal layer directly dictates the next major factor of your day, which is the climate.
Yes.
Reading this guide, the weather forecast isn't just small talk. It is a rigid operational framework.
Climate dictates everything for these dogs. I mean, they can adapt to warmer geographies, but only through deliberate, intensive environmental management by the owner.
Like scheduling your life around the sun.
Exactly. Walks happen at dawn or, well after dusk.
Yeah.
You are mapping out routes based entirely on shade availability.
And the sources emphasize that humidity is the real hidden enemy here, even more than raw temperature.
Yeah, let's look at the biology of how a dog cools down. They don't sweat like we do. They rely on evaporative cooling through their respiratory tract.
By panting.
Right. When a dog pants, they pull air over the highly vascular tissues in their nasal cavity and tongue, evaporating moisture and cooling the blood, which then circulates back into the body.
But when relative humidity is high, the air is already saturated with moisture.
Exactly. The vapor pressure gradient shrinks. The moisture in the dog's respiratory tract cannot evaporate into the human air, meaning the panting loses its thermodynamic efficiency.
So they're just panting for nothing.
Worse than nothing. The dog is doing the mechanical work of panting, generating internal heat from the muscle exertion, but getting no cooling reward.
That sounds miserable.
It is.
Yeah.
This is why a humid 75-degree day is significantly more dangerous to a Samoyed than a dry 85-degree day. Overweight dogs and senior dogs are at an even higher risk because their cardiovascular systems are already under strain.
This level of heat sensitivity makes mundane tasks incredibly complex.
Yeah.
Even just running an errand in the car requires a logistical plan.
Oh, yeah.
The interior of a car acts like a greenhouse, and the guide warns that car travel in warm weather is genuinely risky without deliberate ventilation planning, AC flow specifically directed at the dog, and, cooling mats.
You are constantly running a thermal equation in your head. What's the ambient temperature? What's the dew point? Is the pavement hot enough to burn paw pads?
That constant need for climate control and indoor confinement during the day, it directly collides with their identity as an Arctic working dog. Like, if you are actively avoiding the midday heat, how do you handle their pent-up energy?
Right, that's the big question.
A lot of traditional advice is a big dog just needs a big backyard. But reading the breakdown of their behavioral needs, a backyard is really just a different, slightly larger room.
That is a vital distinction. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the backyard myth is fundamentally flawed. A yard provides space, sure, but it does not provide engagement.
Yeah, it's like standing in an empty gym.
That's the perfect way to look at it.
Right. Like, just because I have a membership to a facility with a lot of square footage doesn't mean I'm getting a workout. If I don't have a routine or a trainer telling me what to do, I'm just going to pace around, get bored, and leave. For a dog, the owner is the personal trainer.
And without that trainer, a Samoyed in a yard will find their own, usually destructive jobs to do. They don't run wind sprints to stay fit.
No, they probably dig.
Oh, they dig massive craters to find cool dirt. They patrol the fence line, barking. They try to dig under or climb over the barrier out of sheer frustration. This mechanism perfectly addresses the highly searched question, can Samoyeds live in apartments?
Now, the intuitive answer there is no, but the source material flips that entire assumption on its head. The question isn't whether the dog can live in an apartment. The question is whether the apartment lifestyle can meet the dog's needs.
Right, because apartment living forces the owner to be incredibly intentional. You can't rely on the lazy crutch of just opening the back door.
Yeah.
You have to ensure strict AC control in the unit. You have to stay on top of the grooming so that undercoat. You have to plan potty breaks around elevator
Which
schedules.
is huge for a puppy learning bladder control
Right.
or a senior dog with mobility issues.
Exactly. And because there is no yard, you have to replace physical space with structured mental energy output. The guide talks a lot about scent games, food puzzles, and ongoing training.
Mental exhaustion is just as critical, if not more so, than physical exhaustion.
Absolutely. Forcing a dog to use their olfactory bulb to sniff out hidden treats or working through obedience commands requires immense cognitive focus.
And that burns energy.
It burns off the excess cortisol and adrenaline that builds up when a working breed is stagnant. An apartment Samoyed that receives 2 focused training sessions and a cool evening walk is universally happier and better behaved than a Samoyed left alone in an acre of fenced grass for 10 hours.
Which naturally leads us to the behavioral fallout when that energy isn't channeled. What happens when an Arctic worker gets bored, especially in a shared wall environment?
They get loud, very loud.
Right. So what does this all mean for someone living in a noise-sensitive home or like a strict condo association? I read the warnings in the guide, but surely with modern training techniques, you can just teach a reliable, quiet command and condition the dog to be silent.
This raises an important question about the intersection of training and genetics.
Okay.
You can teach a quiet cue to interrupt a behavior, sure, but you cannot train away a dog's genetic blueprint. The Samoyed is hardwired to be highly vocal.
This is not just a bad habit, it's an evolutionary feature.
Yes. Think about their history. These dogs were developed by nomadic tribes in the Siberian tundra. In whiteout blizzard conditions, across miles of frozen, visually uniform landscape, the dogs relied on constant vocalization to maintain contact with the pack and with their humans.
Oh, wow. So their bark was a critical radar system.
Exactly. They bark to alert, they howl, they whine, they produce this highly specific talking or grumbling sound, and they will absolutely demand bark if they want attention.
So if a household requires total silence as a baseline rule, this breed is a categorical mismatch.
Totally. You can manage the volume by ensuring their mental and physical needs are met because a tired dog is a quieter dog, and by ensuring you don't accidentally reward demand barking, but you will never have a silent Samoyed.
That historical context completely recontextualizes how we should view their noise. The guide provided a brilliant insight here. A sudden change in barking patterns shouldn't just be viewed as an annoyance to be shushed. It is a highly sensitive diagnostic tool.
Right, because they are so communicative, any deviation in their vocal baseline is them transmitting data.
Data, right.
If a normally quiet dog starts pacing and whining, or if their alert bark suddenly shifts in pitch, it is a signal. It could indicate they are overheating, experiencing gastrointestinal discomfort, suffering from a joint issue, or dealing with a sudden spike in environmental anxiety.
So you really have to learn to translate the noise rather than just suppress it.
Yes.
And that constant stream of communication stems from the fact that they are profoundly social animals. They're vocalizing because they desperately want to be integrated into whatever you are doing.
They are pack bonded to their core. They thrive as deeply affectionate family companions. However, the sources are adamant that this inherent friendliness requires rigorous boundaries.
I found that slightly counterintuitive, actually.
Oh, so?
Well, if a dog's baseline temperament is friendly and they love being in the middle of a busy household, why is there such a strong emphasis on strict rules for children and visitors? Doesn't a friendly dog just, go with the flow?
That's a common assumption, but a friendly dog without structure quickly becomes an over-aroused, chaotic dog. Friendliness simply means they want to engage. It doesn't mean they know how to engage safely. For children, the boundaries must be non-negotiable. Kids cannot pull at the fur, they cannot disturb the dog's deep sleep cycles, and they cannot engage in high-speed chasing that pushes the dog into a frantic, overstimulated state.
And adults have to actively manage visitors coming through the front door, too.
Oh, visitors are notorious for inadvertently rewarding the exact behaviors owners spend months trying to train out.
Like the jumping.
Yes. If a 50-pound Samoyed is spinning, jumping, and vocalizing at the door, and the guest immediately drops down to pet them, the dog learns that high arousal yields a reward. You have to advocate for the dog and force guests to ignore them until the dog offers a calm, settled behavior.
And that need for management extends beyond the living room. The guide notes that their enthusiasm can complicate interactions with other animals. Because their playstyle is often highly physical and accompanied by intense vocalization, a crowded dog park can escalate very quickly.
High arousal in a dog park often mimics prey drive or triggers defensive aggression in other dogs. And speaking of prey drive, we really have to look at how a Samoyed interacts with other species in the home.
Because they're working dogs, so the prey drives is going to be a factor, even if it varies from dog to dog.
It is deeply ingrained. Movement triggers the sequence. Stalk, chase, grab. If you have an indoor cat, you are looking at careful, prolonged introductions, and the house must be structurally modified so the cat always has vertical escape routes that the dog cannot access.
But the guide was uncompromising when it came to small pets: rabbits, guinea pigs, birds.
Yeah, you cannot rely on a Samoyed's friendliness when it comes to a prey animal. The high contrast, erratic movement of a small pet triggers an instinctual predatory drift. Small pets must be secured behind robust physical barriers.
So no free-roaming hamsters.
Definitely not. Managing that environment is the definition of responsible ownership. Relying on luck or assuming your dog is, like, too nice to act on their instincts is a recipe for tragedy.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And respecting their social nature also means addressing the dark side of that pack bond: separation anxiety.
Right.
If an Arctic dog was separated from its pack on the tundra, it basically meant death. That survival anxiety is still in their DNA.
That is a phenomenal way to understand it. They cannot build a fulfilling life out of an empty living room. If you work long, unpredictable hours and intend to leave a Samoyed alone in a house for 9 or 10 hours a day, that isolation will manifest as profound psychological distress.
Like destroying things.
Yes, you will see barrier frustration, destruction of door frames, and even self-mutilation through excessive licking.
So managing that requires real infrastructure: dog walkers, specialized daycares, or highly flexible remote work schedules. And when you bring all these daily realities together, the constant coat maintenance, the elevated air conditioning usage, the dog walkers, the high-value training puzzles, it exposes the true, holistic cost of this breed.
What's fascinating here is how these requirements force us to reconsider the traditional advice given to prospective dog owners. Usually, a first-time owner is steered toward low-maintenance, highly forgiving breeds.
Right, like a lab or something.
Exactly. A Samoyed is categorically not beginner-proof.
But the guide actually states that a prepared beginner can be highly successful.
And that is because success with a Samoyed isn't necessarily about decades of dog handling experience. It's about a willingness to execute a complex daily routine.
Willingness to do the work.
Yes. If you are intellectually honest about the heat management, the grooming labor, the financial realities, and the noise, a beginner who adheres to the protocol will thrive.
And the financial reality is far more than just the purchase price or premium kibble. You're buying professional-grade, high-velocity grooming dryers, specialized rakes, cooling mats, a surplus of vacuum filters, and budgeting for robust preventive vet care.
It touches every aspect of your life, including travel. A road trip requires mapping out rest stops with shade and monitoring the car's internal ambient temperature.
And if you fly and have to leave the dog behind, you cannot just hand a Samoyed off to a casual neighborhood pet sitter.
No, absolutely not. You are handing over a highly specific operating manual. The sitter needs to understand why a 70-degree humid day means the dog stays inside, how to comb down to the skin, and how to interpret their vocalizations.
To manage this immense volume of data over the dog's lifespan, the sources heavily advocate for keeping a running health and behavioral log, tracking their baseline weight, logging their normal vocal patterns, documenting their skin health after grooming, and noting their heat tolerance thresholds.
Yeah, it provides an objective baseline. When you track the data, you remove the guesswork.
Because memory isn't always reliable.
Right. You immediately notice those subtle diagnostic shifts, like a sudden reluctance to walk on a mildly warm day that they used to handle perfectly, which might indicate early joint pain rather than just heat fatigue.
It basically transforms you from a reactive owner to a proactive advocate for your dog's health.
That's exactly it.
So, summarizing the core philosophy running through all of these source materials, a Samoyed does not fit a home simply because the owner appreciates their aesthetic beauty. A Samoyed fits when the household is fundamentally prepared to support the rugged, demanding life behind that beauty.
That is the ultimate metric for compatibility.
So for you listening, it boils down to a very direct challenge. You really have to ask yourself, are you looking for a pet that will quietly manage itself in the background of your life, adapting entirely to your convenience? Or are you actively seeking an animal that will enthusiastically, loudly, and heavily shape your daily routines?
Because it's a big shift.
Yeah, inviting a Samoyed into your home is inviting a complete lifestyle overhaul.
It is a complete paradigm shift. And I will leave you with a final thought to mull over here. Consider the sheer staggering adaptability of a biological machine designed over centuries to be a rugged Arctic survivor.
Right.
These dogs were genetically sculpted to endure brutal freezing temperatures, haul sleds across ice, and alert a nomadic camp to predators in the wilderness. And today,
What do we do with them today?
we ask these exact same evolutionary traits to patiently ride apartment elevators, gently solve plastic indoor scent puzzles for their dinner, and politely navigate warm summer climates without losing their minds.
It is a profoundly bizarre transition when you look at it through that lens.
It truly is. It forces you to wonder how much of modern pet ownership is simply an exercise in asking ancient, harsh weather survival instincts to translate smoothly into polite living room manners.
Man, it adds an entirely new layer of respect when you look at that fresh drift of white fur shining on the rug, knowing the history woven into every strand.
It elevates them from a beautiful pet to a fascinating piece of living history.
It sure does. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.